SpaceX's Starship Flight 9 is set for May 20th, aiming for orbit with Ship 35 and Booster 14. Join us to explore this historic milestone. Recently, the U.S. Coast Guard Navigation Center issued an important notice about a hazardous rocket launch activity in the Gulf of Mexico near Boca Chica, Texas. The primary launch window is scheduled for Tuesday, May 20th, between 6:30 p.m. and 8:34 p.m., with backup launch dates extending into May 21st. What's interesting is that the location and timing perfectly match previous predictions for Starship Flight 9. The main message of the notice is to warn ships to steer clear of the danger zone due to potential debris or falling hardware from the rocket. Looks like authorities still don't fully trust Starship yet, but hey, better safe than sorry. Then came another update, this also from the US Coast Guard. Their local Notice to Mariners, LNM, added more specific warnings, mainly targeting local fishermen and boats operating in the narrower coastal area known as the Corpus Christi sector. At first, the launch window was set from May 19th to May 28th, but it was later revised to May 20th through May 29th. The Coast Guard's alert basically locks in the earliest possible date and location within that window, giving us a clearer picture of when liftoff might happen and the potential risk area involved. On top of that, we have a notice from the Federal Aviation Administration, specifically a NOTAM, or Notice to Air Missions, that also points to Flight 9. While the date listed differs from the Coast Guard's estimate, here's the interesting part. This NOTAM covers an area that hasn't been flagged in any previous Starship flights. It applies to a large region between Cuba and the Bahamas, right along the flight path's orbital trajectory, which suggests that Flight 9 could be going farther, possibly aiming for an orbital target. What's more, the NOTAM starts earlier, on May 13th, while the Coast Guard's maritime window stretches later. This shows that both the FAA and USCG are widening their alert windows, likely to accommodate a flexible launch schedule, meaning Flight 9 could lift off at any point within that broader time frame. All these signs are clearly pointing toward a launch window, and if liftoff really happens on May 20th, as expected, it would mark a major milestone, strongly validating previous predictions and signaling rapid progress in Starship's development cycle. But the big question still remains, is SpaceX truly ready to launch on May 20th? Looking at the progress SpaceX has made, the answer seems to be yes. Everything recently has been revolving around Ship 35, which is scheduled to fly on Flight 9. Earlier this month, it went through 2 static fire tests at Massey, one with a single Raptor engine and another full-duration test with all 6 engines. However, during the second test, one of the vacuum engines ran into trouble. SpaceX responded quickly, moving Ship 35 back to Mega Bay 2 the very next day to swap out the faulty vacuum Raptor engine. On May 10th, SpaceX made a key move. They brought the static fire stand into MB2, where Ship 35 was being prepped for its next big test. The very next day, on the 11th, Ship 35 was mounted onto the stand, released from the load spreader, and rolled out. But here's the interesting part. Instead of stopping at Sanchez like usual, it went straight to Massey. That's a clear sign. SpaceX is picking up the pace. They're pushing hard to get Ship 35 ready for Flight 9, and fast. After arriving at Massey, following around 4 hours of transport, Ship 35 was connected to the SQD. However, no venting has been observed, not even a hint that any testing would take place that evening. SpaceX truly knows how to keep us guessing. On the morning of May 11th, at Massey, Ship 35 was fully loaded with cryogenic fuel and looked set for a major test. But in the end, the static fire didn't happen. Both of S-35's tanks were filled with cryo, and the deluge system suddenly activated just before detanking. This is quite unusual, as a deluge is typically seen in conjunction with a static fire, but not without it. One possibility is that SpaceX was conducting a secondary test known as a spin prime, where the turbopumps are spun up without actually igniting the engine. Another scenario is that something unexpected led to an abort just before the test was set to proceed. While SpaceX has yet to make an official statement, a static fire could still be on the horizon, potentially as soon as May 12th. This timeline aligns with a road closure notice, which reveals that SpaceX plans to transport a vehicle, likely Ship 35, from Massey to the launch site on that very day. The plan, which has been approved by the Texas Department of Transportation, sets a transport window from 10:00 a.m. to 4:00 p.m., with an estimated travel time of about 2 hours. With this timeline, a launch on May 20th is definitely possible, as long as all the systems pass the final tests without any delays. Of course, as always, we'll need to wait for official confirmation from SpaceX before locking in the date. Personally, we have a feeling Flight 9 might actually happen on May 21st, since SpaceX tends to have a bit of flexibility with these plans. So, what do you think? When do you expect the launch to happen? Drop a comment and let us know. We're really looking forward to this flight because Ship 35, along with Booster 14, is set to make it a historic flight for SpaceX. Flight 9. Objectives and challenges. First off, we'd say SpaceX is under some serious behind-the-scenes pressure right now. They've got to prove they can fix the issues that doomed the last 2 flights and finally hit those key mission objectives. That brings us to Flight 9, which will mark the 3rd time SpaceX flies with its Block 2 hardware, the latest version of the upper stage. It's clear they've been putting in a ton of work to make sure it actually reaches orbit this time. Now, pairing with that upper stage is Ship 35, set to launch atop Booster 14, the same booster that flew on Flight 7. But here's where it gets interesting. Unlike previous flights, B-14 won't be caught by Mechazilla's arms. Instead, it's expected to splash down in the ocean. That's also why coastal authorities have issued warnings and created hazard zones, which strongly hints that this will be B-14's final mission. As for Ship 35, SpaceX is clearly going all in. Their goal is to get it into orbit, then have it re-enter Earth's atmosphere, and ideally, pull off a controlled splashdown, another major milestone on the road to full reusability. That's important because this is the very vehicle Elon Musk plans to use to launch Starlink in the future, eventually replacing Falcon 9. Why? Simple. The launch cost will be way lower, and the amount of payload it can carry each time is absolutely massive. According to Musk, Starship V2 can haul more than 300 times the payload of the original Falcon 1. And with Starship V3, that number jumps to 400 times. That's a huge leap in capability and a total game changer for SpaceX's satellite plans. But what if it fails again? A 3rd explosion in a row would be a major setback, and it would raise some serious questions about the core design of the Block 2 upper stage. Still, let's not forget, every misstep is part of the plan. After all, failure is the mother of success, but rules are rules. And if something goes wrong, it's SpaceX that takes the biggest hit, especially when it comes to future launch schedules. The FAA already launched investigations into Flight 7 and 8. And after Flight 8 exploded, they even paused commercial launches over debris concerns. If Flight 9 ends in another major failure, the FAA could clamp down even harder with longer investigations, tighter safety demands, and more red tape. That could seriously delay the entire Starship program. Bottom line, SpaceX needs a win, badly. Yeah, a lot of people might be worried right now, wondering if SpaceX will make it or face another failure. But hey, don't forget who we're talking about here. This is SpaceX, a company that's been to the edge and clawed its way back. Go back to the early days of Falcon 1. Things were way worse back then. They failed 3 times in a row. The company was on the verge of going under. But on their 4th attempt, in September 2008, they finally pulled it off. And that one success changed everything. One of SpaceX's top engineers at the time, John Edwards, once said something that stuck. Never give up. After Flight 3 of Falcon 1, we learned the hard way that the darkest night is right before dawn. Keep the faith. Keep pushing. We'll get there. That success laid the groundwork for Falcon 9. The rocket that turned SpaceX into a powerhouse in modern spaceflight. With nearly 500 successful launches and an unmatched reusability record, Falcon 9 stands as the result of years of relentless effort and innovation. In 2022, Falcon 9 broke records with 60 successful launches in a single year, beating the long-standing Soviet-era Soyuz record of 47 launches set back in 1979. And that momentum didn't slow down. By 2023, the Falcon family had pulled off 96 successful missions. Then, in 2024, SpaceX pushed even harder, racking up an incredible 134 Falcon flights, a 40% jump in launch cadence. At the heart of this success is their game-changing reusability. As of the time you're watching this video, SpaceX has successfully landed Falcon 9 boosters 470 times. No private company or government agency has ever come close to that. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So, can SpaceX pull off a similar turnaround with Starship? Absolutely. The stakes this time are much lower. With Elon Musk's current wealth, he could launch Starship hundreds of times and still not go bankrupt. This time, Starship isn't like a small rocket like Falcon 1. It's a massive, fully reusable system built for Mars, the Moon, and beyond. The technical complexity is on a whole different level. Even if it costs billions of dollars, the potential it holds makes it all worth it. And this time, SpaceX isn't just developing a vehicle for themselves. They've got a lot of Starship projects with partners on the table. For example, they're designing the Starship SLS, Starship tanker, and an orbital refueling system for NASA to support the Artemis missions. They're also working on Starship point-to-point for the Department of Defense, and more. With the money coming from these contracts, SpaceX will only gain more benefits throughout Starship's development process. This isn't just a win for them. It's a massive step forward for the future of space exploration. Before meeting customer demands, SpaceX will approach the challenge with a move fast and break things mentality. They don't view failures as insurmountable obstacles, but as valuable learning opportunities that provide crucial insights for the next round of design tweaks and improvements. So, Flight 9 will be a significant step towards the debut of Starship version 3, possibly as early as this year. That's all for today's update. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.